Hey everyone, Mortgage Nerd here again. Roe versus Wade, what effect could a Supreme Court ruling on the right to privacy for a woman to have the choice to have an abortion or not, what would that have anything to do with housing? I'll tell you right now. Let's put up this graph here. So this graph that you're looking at shows the birth rates for each generation. You see the ups and downs. You see the baby boomers. It went way up there in between 1946 and 1965. Now, then you see a dip, a tiny spike, and then it dips down again. So when it dips down again, that right there, when 33-year-olds in 2006, everyone who turned 33 was born in 1973. So 1973 is when the Supreme Court ruled in favor of the right to privacy for a woman to have the choice of whether or not to have an abortion. So when this happened, it obviously had a huge effect on the birth rates. I was kind of blown away by this when I saw this. And I know it's controversial, anything about abortion. It's very polarized. And I'm not here to talk about that because it's not an opinion that I'm giving. It's a fact on what happened in housing. So think back to 2006. What happened in housing? Well, real estate was booming. And then the market crashed a couple years later. So some of the people that were predicting the crash weren't just predicting it because of all the fraud and all the artificial increases of values and the loose lending guidelines. That's not the only reason. A lot of them said, whoa, population has changed. And that first-time home buyer aged 33 is reducing, is going lower. So, yeah, there were factors that caused the crash, but this factor, Roe versus Wade, perpetuated the housing crash and the length of it, of that recession that ensued. So if you think about on this graph again, let's look at it again. The 33-year-old today, the millennials, they're booming. The population started to rise, which is normal. And so we're seeing this increase now. Look at how our values continue to increase. And some people are saying, okay, well, a recession is coming. I'm one of those people because it's going to get here eventually. It's been 11 years since our last recession. It's going to be 12 or 13, maybe even 14, because I've heard the Fed is going to drop interest rates a little bit, the adjustable rate, not the fixed rate. So that's going to help stimulate the economy further. It's going to help prevent a recession from coming. So we might see this really long run on not having recessions. What is helping fuel that on the housing side of things? Well, first-time home buyers, average age of 33 is continuing to rise. Look at that graph again. Look at it. Look at what's happening now with the millennials. Go back to the 33-year-old in 2006. That's 1973. Some might say, well, birth control affected that. It did. If you go back, birth control came out in the 60s. So 1965 is the first place that you'll see that drop. So birth control had an effect. It's really interesting how this works. Now I want you to look at another graph here. Household formations. So in blue, it's household growth. And the other color, I'm colorblind, I think it's green. That's household completions. That's builders completing homes. Notice in 2002, household growth was slower than what builders were building. 2006, look how household growth dropped. That's pretty amazing because that coincides with the 33-year-old who was born after Roe versus Wade. And you see the housing crash, 06, 07, 08, 09, 2010, 2011. You see what happened to annual completions, the housing completions. Look how that dropped off. It had to, because the housing market did not have enough demand for the supply. If the supply was up here, the demand was down here. Now, what do we see on this graph? We see that the demand is up here and the housing is down here. So it's really cool. I think it's great. And I think, yeah, I probably got your attention with a controversial issue. That's the goal. But it's interesting to see how decisions like that, decision in Alabama now, if that ban is upheld long term, what effect will that have on Alabama's housing market 33 years from now? So it's all pretty interesting. I'm here to nerd out on this type of stuff with you anytime you need. Phil Stevenson, Mortgage Nerd. Thanks.